Hey, what's up, y'all? Did you know that we didn't always love big titty goth witch girls? I know, crazy as hell, right? Nah, so back in the day, we would burn women up if we even thought they were witches. So, what exactly made people believe in witchcraft? Like, people legit believed that some old woman with a cat and a wizard hat would turn them into a toad, or cast a curse that would make their cows stop producing milk, or even worse. If a woman voiced her opinion on something, that shit was obviously some sort of sorcery and she would have to burn. It kind of seems ridiculous now, but back in the day, witchcraft was pretty much seen as a real threat. Let's dive into why people were so scared of witches and why they jumped on the witch hunt train. Okay, so we gotta start with history. Back in the Middle Ages and into the early modern period, people didn't have the internet. They didn't have Google to fact check stuff, and their entire worldview was based on what they were told. Most people were super religious, but not modern day religious, where it's a live and let live mindset. No, they didn't play around with certain stuff. And Catholicism in Europe and Christianity just in general held a lot of sway. Anything that went against the norm of the religious teachings was considered suspicious at best, and at worst, well, it was witchcraft. Think about it. In a time where your life expectancy was 30 years, you'd probably dying of some random disease or a freak accident. People were looking for reasons for all this weird shit happening around them, like the Black Death, which, side note, killed between 75 and 200 million people in Europe between 1348 and 1351. Bro, that's 3 years to wipe out between 30 and 50% of the entire population of Europe. That shit's crazy as hell. But when stuff like that happens, you want someone to blame, right? Well, they didn't know anything about germs, bro. So instead of realizing, hey, maybe having rat shit in their food and sleeping next to disease-ridden animals was the problem, now they blame witches. And these people were idiots, bro. So these dumbasses ran outside trying to cosplay as Van Helsing. Now, let's talk fear. Back then, people were terrified of the unknown. A lot of folks don't understand disease, crop failures, or bad harvests. You know, what happens when something bad happens? People freak out. They look for someone to blame, and witches became the easy target. I'm sure you know all these people these days that can never take accountability for anything that happens in their life. Somehow, everything that happens in their life is because of someone else. It can never be due to their dumbass choices. Well, people were the same back then. If your crops failed or your cow dropped dead, you didn't think, yo, maybe I'm just a shitty farmer. Nah, you were convinced that Bathsheba next door was hexing your livestock. And see, that's kind of where things get nasty, because whole communities were caught up in witch hunts. Why? Because fear breeds more fear. Once one person was accused, everyone started getting paranoid. People in power used witch trials to maintain control too. It was a great way to manipulate the masses, distract them from real issues, and to get rid of enemies, whether they were real or imagined enemies. You see, a lot of this was based around religion. Now, religion has been used for a lot of good in this world, but people have also abused it to have power and control over others as well. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Well, this was one of those cases of abuse. So the Christian denomination called Puritanism was the driving force behind all the kill all witches movement. The Bible mentions things like magic, sorcery, and witchcraft a couple times, and let me tell you, it's not too fond of it. Well, the Puritans saw this as a perfect excuse to do what all reasonable people would do in this situation. Kill every woman who could be considered a witch based on your completely made up criteria. So in 1486, a book was published called, look, I don't know how to say this shit, so I'm just gonna call it The Hammer of Witches. It's kind of the layman name for it. Well, it was written by the German Catholic clergyman Heinrich Kramer. This book was basically a witch hunting manual. It told people how to identify witches as well as how to torture them to get confessions out of them. Oh, and don't forget the infamous burning them at the stake. This book kind of kicked off the literal witch hunts. In the Salem witch trials, women could be accused of being a witch for things like committing bad acts, possession of materials used in spells, or being greater than average strength. All you big calf burly bitches would have been in trouble back then. Cause I know some of y'all built like Abby from The Last of Us too. But luckily for you, we've matured and aren't as brain dead anymore. Well, now let's throw a little gender or sex into the discussion. You know, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people accused of witchcraft were women. Oh, surprise, surprise, right? Well, in a patriarchal society, women, especially those who were independent or didn't conform to the standard of wife and mother roles, were seen as a threat. If you were single, old, or had a lot of knowledge about herbs and healing, you know the good stuff like using plants for medicine, yeah, they probably label you as a witch. And boom, that was enough for some angry mob to come after you. And yeah, unfortunately, you did hear that right. All you essential oil using, tree hugging, dandelion tea drinking girls out there would have been lit up like a Christmas tree. See, this wasn't just about superstition, it was about power. Women were often marginalized, and the witch trials were a way for the ruling class to keep them in check. If you were a woman who spoke out or was a little too knowledgeable, you were seen as dangerous. It's kind of like the whole don't rock the boat mentality, but with fire and pitchforks. Bro, in the 1500s, women were basically considered second-class citizens, barely above the family goat. They couldn't vote, couldn't own property, and sure as hell weren't supposed to have opinions. So when a wife would voice her concern, her husband's like, nah, hold up, bitch, you gotta be possessed. I mean, men and women didn't even start sleeping in the same beds until the late 1880s. They also had limited access to education, so they really were expected to be dumbass baby-making machines. Now imagine your washing machine starts talking to you about its life goals. Shit, I probably think it's possessed too. Oh, and by the way, none of this is acceptable. Don't take my relaxed demeanor as me being pro killing women for thinking that they're witches. Nah, those dudes were straight crazy as hell. But let's dive into some psychology. Human beings, at the core, see, we're social animals. We're wired to believe in things, especially when there's a group consensus. When everyone around you is freaking out about witches, you start to question your own reality. And then you find yourself pointing fingers at your neighbor. Even if you're just a little skeptical, it's called social contagion. The fear spreads. Another thing, cognitive biases. People back then were just like us. They made snap judgments based on limited information. The confirmation bias kicks in. If someone's accused of being a witch and something bad happens, they go connect the dots even though there's no real cause and effect relationship. It's like the old saying, you see what you want to see. Especially in Salem, where young girls started the witch accusations to kick off the infamous Salem witch trials. See, these young girls had the most silenced voices at the time, being second-class citizens and all. But what they noticed quickly was when they started the witch accusations, now everyone wanted to listen to them. They kind of became mini celebrities. Things like fear, scapegoating, and ostracism led to the complete mental downward spiral of the locals, leading to their violent acts against perceived witches. See, all it took was accusing outsiders who violated the cultural and religious expectations of being witches. Then the accused had two choices. Either A, apologize and fold to the cultural norms, or B, die. Either way, it gets any free thinkers out of this society. See, you either become one of us or you lose your life. It's real simple. Alright, but how the hell did we go from burning witches at the stake to laughing about it in movies? Well, over time, as science and reason started to gain traction, people began realizing that maybe, well, just maybe, burning someone alive wasn't the best way to handle an unruly woman. Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and John Locke challenged the traditional views of the time, and slowly the witch trials eventually died down. Witch hunts became less common by the 18th century, but they still lingered in the pockets of society. Hell, even in the 20th century, people were still accusing folks of witchcraft. It wasn't until the modern era, with advancements in technology, medicine, and science, that people started to see witchcraft as more of a superstition rather than an actual deadly threat. But even today in some parts of the world, witch hunts still happen. So if you've been listening to this video and you're starting to become inspired, you can go right down to sub-Saharan Africa, Saudi Arabia, or Papua New Guinea. Hell, in the Middle East, they out here killing street magicians for being sorcerers, dude. I'm just saying, don't go show ISIS a card trick, or they gonna show you the saw your ass in half trick. And back in 2007 in Saudi Arabia, this dude with 17 names was sentenced to death after being convicted of producing a spell that would lead to the reconciliation of a divorced couple. This man was a marriage counselor and got killed for being good at his job. Damn, bro, these streets are rough these days. So, there you have it. Turns out witch hunts were less about magic and more about fear, power, and people being gullible as hell. And if you're feeling inspired to go on a witch hunt yourself, feel free to head straight to Sub-Saharan Africa or Papua New Guinea. Those folks are still keeping it old school. Anyway, what do y'all think? Are modern day witch hunts just a different brand of bullshit? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you liked the video, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe. But I'm gonna see y'all boys next time.